Welcome to the 2026 Data Dissemination Forum on International Merchandise Trade Statistics, or IMTS. I am Jordan John Nice from the Philippine Statistics Authority, and it's a privilege to be your master of ceremony for today's forum. On behalf of the PSA, thank you for being with us virtually. We are delighted to have your presence as we share valuable insights and updates on trade statistics. To formally begin our program, please stay on mute as we listen to the doxology through an audiovisual presentation, followed by the Philippine National Anthem.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you today to praise and worship you and give you thanks for all the things you continue to provide for ourselves and our families. Father, we humbly ask for forgiveness for all the times you have offended you. Continue to guide and protect us, Lord. Bestow upon us your unending grace and healing, that we may in turn become instruments of gentleness and compassion to others. We ask all this in the name of your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ, with prayer and intercession of our Blessed Mother. Amen.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اللهم اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. اللهم وحد صفوفنا بين المسلمين والنصارى واللوماد إلى صراطك المستقيم. اللهم امنحهم العيش بالأمن والسلامة والتنمية المستدامة في مدينة دافاو. اللهم لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Amoynen manama kami gimot tolangon, manotod kakaroson no, si koikaw kami dokul tolangon, way migtumpi to tano, si koikaw kami bohoy to kopianan tolangon no maotaw, pusako kapusung no, kana akun to pabulos koy, o agbuyo koikaw, way bohoy kat pabur, kahalaan, kalinaw, to kanami, no pag-ugpo, way kasapo kakoy, oyod kalambu. Kay kuro tamana kakodin panubado ay pag-ampo, kaupianan ikoy no, way kakoy ko nimo no, way kahalaan ko lang.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
At this moment, allow me to acknowledge the presence of our esteemed PSA officials, guests, and participants. We are honored to be joined by representatives from various sectors and institutions whose roles are vital in the production, use, and analysis of trade data. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to acknowledge the presence of Undersecretary Claire Dennis S. Mapa, National Statistician and Civil Registrar General of the Philippine Statistics Authority. Deputy National Statistician of Sectoral Statistics Office, Assistant Secretary de Vinagracia L. Del Prado. Attorney Alan B. Gepti, Undersecretary of the International Trade Group, Department of Trade and Industry. Assistant National Statistician of Economic Sector Statistics Service, ANS Rachel C. Laksa. Attorney Maria Teresa G. Faustino, OIC Director of the Bureau of Policy Research and Innovation, Department of Trade and Industry. Director Richard Emerson D. Ballester, Director 3 of the Trade Services and Industry Staff, Department of Economy, Planning and Development. Dr. Sir Percival K. Peña Reyes, Assistant Professor of the Department of Economics, Ateneo de Manila University. Mr. Gabriel Inigo M. Hernandez, Economist 5 of the Office of Chief Economist, Department of Finance. We also have our participants from government agencies, representatives from embassies, partners from academic institutions, colleagues from the private sector and business community, and of course, our very own PSA statistical personnel and technical staff. We warmly welcome each and every one of you. Your presence reflects your continued commitment to data-driven decision-making and inclusive development. To officially welcome us all, we now hear the message from the National Statistician and Civil Registrar General of the Philippine Statistics Authority. Ladies and gentlemen, Under Secretary Claire Dennis S. Mapa.
To our esteemed keynote speaker, Attorney Alan Gipty, the Undersecretary of the International Trade Group of the Department of Trade and Industry, valued guests from various government agencies and private institutions, traders, and dedicated colleagues from the Philippine Statistics Authority, magandang umaga sa ating lahat. It is my honor to welcome you all to the 2026 Data Dissemination Forum on the International Merchandise Trade Statistics, or IMTS. Since its inception in 2020, this forum has served as a vital platform for raising awareness and deepening our understanding of the IMTS among our valued partners and stakeholders. This forum also provides an opportunity for meaningful dialogue on how trade statistics can better support data-driven decision-making, effective trade policy development, and strategic planning in both the public and private sectors. The compilation of the IMTS dates back to the 1800s and continues to be a vital measure of a country's economic performance. These statistics provide essential information on the movement of goods between a country and its trading partners, covering both exports and imports. As emphasized by the United Nations Statistics Division, the IMTS plays a central role in economic development. By monitoring cross-border trade, the IMTS helps connect producers and consumers across markets, supports global integration, and contributes to building economic resilience. In the Philippines, the IMTS data are compiled to serve the needs of a wide range of users and stakeholders. For instance, exports and imports are considered as major inputs in the compilation of the national accounts, particularly in the computation of the gross domestic product at both the national and regional levels. Exports contribute to economic growth through increased productivity, income generation, and inflow of foreign exchange reserves, while imports help meet domestic demand and lower the cost of goods. In the first quarter of 2026, our exports of goods accounted for 14.9% of the GDP, while imports of goods comprised 31.5%. These figures demonstrate the significant role of merchandise trade in the country's economic performance. They also highlight the need for quality trade statistics that can support economic monitoring, policy formulation, and strategic planning. Beyond economic measurement, the IMTS also serves as a key input to national planning frameworks, particularly the Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028 and the Philippine Statistical Development Program 2023 to 2029. Through these frameworks, trade statistics provides a basis for assessing existing trade strategies, identifying emerging opportunities, and strengthening the country's competitiveness in the global market. In today's forum, we will present the IMTS results covering the full year of 2025 and the first quarter of 2026. These results provide a comprehensive picture of the country's exports and imports. The compilation of the IMTS relies on the timely and continued provision of data by our partner agencies and institutions, both the government and the private sectors. We recognize your indispensable contribution to the production and improvement of trade statistics. The Philippine Statistics Authority remains steadfast in its mandate to produce quality, relevant, and timely statistics that respond to the needs of the government, businesses, researchers, program planners, policymakers, and the general public. As we fulfill this mandate, we recognize that the value of statistics is further strengthened when data are understood, discussed, and used effectively. We are deeply grateful to everyone who has taken the time to attend this forum, and I encourage everyone to actively participate in the discussions. Your questions, your insights, and your perspectives will help enrich the exchange of ideas and contribute to our continuing efforts to improve the country's trade statistics. May this forum further strengthen our shared commitment to statistical excellence, evidence based decision making, and national development. Once again, a good morning to all, and may we all have a fruitful and meaningful forum ahead.
Thank you very much, Undersecretary Mapa, for your inspiring and encouraging message. Your leadership and insights continue to guide us in advancing data quality, accessibility, and relevance in the field of trade statistics. We will now proceed with an audiovisual presentation providing an overview of IMTS. Let's watch this.
2026 International Merchandise Trade Statistics Data Dissemination. The Philippine Statistics Authority serves as the central statistical authority of the government that compiles and generates the International Merchandise Trade Statistics, or IMTS. IMTS pertains to the movement of goods between one country and other countries. IMTS is compiled to serve the needs of many users, including the government, the business community, compilers of other economic statistics such as the balance of payments and the national accounts of the Philippines, various regional, supranational, and international organizations, researchers, and the general public. The main uses of IMTS are as inputs to the following: computing balance of payments, estimating the national accounts of the Philippines, formulating national, regional, and international policies, and in other pertinent activities such as research studies on trade. The history of IMTS. The earliest record was in 1880. From 1885 up to the year 1910, import and export statistics were produced every 5 years. And by 1911, it was produced annually except during World War II. In 1950 to 1972, the compilation of import and export statistics was done by the then Central Bank, now the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, and the then Bureau of Census and Statistics, or BCS, which was renamed as the National Statistics Office, or NSO. Since 1973, the NSO, which is now part of the PSA, became the country's official source of foreign trade statistics in 1973 to the present. In 2010, the term International Merchandise Trade Statistics was used. Coverage of IMTS. All goods entering or leaving any of the seaports or airports of entry in the Philippines are included in the compilation of IMTS. Specifically, goods included in the IMTS are as follows: ship and aircraft, non-monetary gold, banknotes and securities and coins not in circulation, humanitarian aid including emergency aid, gifts and donations, military use, personal effects, goods on consignment, media, whether or not recorded, goods for processing with or without change of economic ownership. While goods excluded from the IMTS are the following: goods in transit to foreign countries, goods temporarily admitted or dispatched, monetary gold, issued banknotes and securities and coins in circulation, goods consigned to and from the territorial enclaves, goods under merchanting, goods under operating lease, goods lost or destroyed after ownership has been acquired, goods functioning as means of transport, goods for repair or maintenance, goods entering or leaving the territory of a country illegally, goods treated as part of the trade in services, fish and other marine products landed by the Philippine vessel direct from the sea, stores and fuels purchased abroad by ships and aircrafts of Philippine registry, goods sent through parcel post, goods less than $25 FOB value. Sources of information: hard copies. The PSA regularly collects the export declaration and single administrative documents submitted by exporters and importers to the Bureau of Customs. Electronic copies. The PSA receives electronic files of export and import documents from the Bureau of Customs, Philippine Economic Zone Authority, and duly authorized value-added service providers such as eConnect Pilipinas Incorporated, Cargo Data Exchange Center Incorporated, Intercommerce Network Services, and Clark Development Corporation. Main indicators. The main indicators included in the IMTS are the following: value of exports and imports, volume of exports and imports, total trade, and balance of trade. The Philippines adopts the general trade system of recording foreign trade statistics. The customs frontier is used as the statistical frontier. All goods entering any of the seaports or airports of the Philippines, which are properly cleared through customs and are remaining or under customs control, are considered imports, whether the goods are for direct consumption, merchandising, warehousing, or further processing. On the other hand, all goods leaving the country which are properly cleared through customs are considered exports. The general process flow in compiling IMTS. The general process flow in compiling IMTS starts with the collection of custom documents, followed by the processing of documents, and finally, the dissemination of results. All hard copy documents and electronic files received within the cutoff date, which is every 15th day of the month, are compiled, processed, summarized, analyzed, and disseminated through statistical tables and releases. Processing. The processing includes coding, editing, reviewing, and validating results. Dissemination materials. International merchandise trade statistics are posted on the PSA website not later than 30 days after each reference month. Seasonally adjusted value of international merchandise trade statistics of the Philippines are posted not later than 30 days after each reference month. International merchandise trade statistics of the Philippines, annual and first semester, are posted not later than 90 days after the reference period. International merchandise trade statistics of the Philippines for agricultural commodities are now posted monthly, not later than 40 days after the reference month. Unit Value Index for exports and imports quarterly release posted not later than 60 days after the reference quarter. The annual release is posted not later than 4 months after the reference year. The rebasing of UVI for exports and imports from base year 2018 to 2023 was recently approved by the PSA Board during its second quarter meeting on 21 May 2026. Annual publication, posted not later than 6 months after the reference year. Infographics on monthly IMTS posted on the PSA website not later than 30 days after each reference month. Infographics on IMTS for agricultural commodities posted on the PSA website not later than 40 days after each reference month. Social media cards posted on the PSA official Facebook page and X account not later than 30 days after each reference month. International merchandise trade statistics are disaggregated as follows: by country of origin and destination, by commodity PSCC 11-digit and by country of origin, by commodity PSCC 11-digit and by country of destination, by geographic region, by local port of loading, by local port of unloading, by major commodity group, by agricultural commodities and major trading partners. Users can also access IMTS data at openstat.psa.gov.ph. The metadata of IMTS can also be obtained from pisada.psa.gov.ph. Please visit our website at www.psa.gov.ph and like us on our social media accounts at PSA.gov.ph.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That presentation gave us a clear and insightful overview of IMTS, its importance, how it is compiled, and its role in shaping economic policies and trade decisions. At this moment, it is my honor to present to you our keynote speaker. He is the Undersecretary of International Trade Group of the Department of Trade and Industry, where he supervises the Bureau of International Trade Relations, the Strategic Trade Management Office, and the Philippine International Trading Corporation. His main portfolio covers trade policy and trade negotiations at the bilateral, regional, and multilateral levels. He is the country's chief trade negotiator on various trade negotiations, such as the Philippines-European Union Free Trade Agreement, the Philippines-Chile Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, Philippines-United Arab Emirates Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, and the Philippines-Canada Free Trade Agreement. He also served as the chief trade negotiator of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, Philippines-South Korea Free Trade Agreement, and various ASEAN trade agreements. From 2019 to 2023, he was the Philippines Senior Economic Official to ASEAN. He currently serves as chair of the ASEAN High-Level Task Force on Economic Integration and the ASEAN Task Force on the Blue Economy. Prior to joining DTI, he was a commissioner of the Philippine Tariff Commission from 2017 to 2018. From 2010 to 2017, he served as Deputy Director General of the Intellectual Property Office, or IPO, of the Philippines. And from January 2015 to October 2015, as its OIC Director General. He is a lawyer and economist with diverse experience in international trade, intellectual property, public international law, competition law, corporate law, and litigation. He is a senior fellow in public service at the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, National University of Singapore, and a graduate of the Advanced Management Program of the Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania. He earned his Bachelor of Commerce degree from the University of Santo Tomas in 1992 as cum laude, his law degree from San Beda College in 1997, and his Master of Laws degree from the University of Santo Tomas in 2016 as summa cum laude. Ladies and gentlemen, our keynote speaker, Attorney Alan B. Gepti.
Good morning, everyone. First, I would like to extend my utmost gratitude to the Philippine Statistics Authority for having me in this very important engagement. It is my pleasure to present the Philippines' international trade relations to highlight the country's evolving role in the global trading system, supported by strong policy direction, data-driven insights, and sustain stakeholders' engagement. At the outset, allow me to frame this presentation around three key pillars: directive, data, and dialogue. First, directive. We anchor our international trade engagement on clear, purposive, and forward-looking policy directions that ensure the Philippines remains competitive and responsive to global developments. Second, data. We rely on timely and credible statistics, particularly data from the Philippine Statistics Authority, to guide evidence-based decision-making and strategic trade interventions. Third, dialogue. We emphasize continuous engagement with government partners, industry stakeholders, and civil society to ensure that our trade policies are inclusive, balanced, and reflective of national development priorities. As emphasized by President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., the Philippines will continue to expand and deepen its network of bilateral and multilateral trade agreements. This reflects our commitment to achieving a more balanced trade strategy, strengthening economic resilience, and ensuring that we maximize the benefits of trade agreements for the Filipino people. This strategic direction is clearly articulated in the Philippine Development Plan 2023-2028. Our trade policy is anchored on being purposive, assertive, and forward-looking, with a strong focus on expanding free trade agreements and integrating emerging areas such as digital trade, sustainability, and good governance. At the same time, we aim to create an enabling and predictable business environment that supports investments and strengthens our participation in global value chains. Our broader trade policy agenda positions the Philippines as a strategic hub for trade, investments, innovation, and sustainable growth. This involves maintaining an open and rules-based trading system, enhancing market access, and promoting trade facilitation. Equally important is our focus on innovation-led industrialization, developing smart and sustainable industries, and strengthening human capital. We also underscore our commitment to sustainability, integrating ESG principles, labor standards, and good governance in our trade agreements and economic cooperation frameworks. The Philippines continues to actively expand and deepen its network of trade agreements and partnerships. We are upgrading existing ASEAN and ASEAN Plus One FTAs, pursuing new bilateral agreements with key partners, and exploring accession to plurilateral frameworks such as the CPTPP. These efforts are intended to diversify our markets, strengthen supply chain resilience, and enhance our global competitiveness while ensuring that our domestic industries are better integrated into regional and global production networks. Turning to trade performance, PSA International Merchandise Trade Statistics data shows steady recovery and expansion in both goods and services trade. While goods remains characterized by a trade deficit due to strong import demand, this also reflects robust domestic economic activity and investment requirements. On the other hand, services trade continues to be a key strength, consistently generating a surplus and contributing positively to our overall external position. Our trade remains highly integrated with our FTA partners, accounting for around 72% of total trade. This underscores the importance of trade agreements in securing market access and facilitating trade flows. At the same time, we recognize the need to lock in and expand these preferences, particularly by transitioning from unilateral schemes such as GSP into more stable and reciprocal free trade agreements, while also exploring emerging and non-traditional markets. On the import side, our top sources include major regional economies such as China, Japan, Korea, and ASEAN member states. This highlights the Philippines' strong participation in regional supply chains, particularly in manufacturing and intermediate goods trade. By composition, imports are largely dominated by raw materials, intermediate goods, and capital goods. This indicates that imports are primarily production supporting, reinforcing domestic industries, and enabling economic expansion rather than purely consumption driven demand. On exports, the Philippines maintains a diversified set of markets, with the United States, Hong Kong, Japan, and China as leading destinations. This reflects both traditional partnerships and strategic engagement with key global markets, supporting export growth and stability. In terms of composition, export remain heavily concentrated in electronics, which continue to anchor our participation in global value chains. At the same time, there is scope to diversify exports, particularly by promoting higher value-added products and expanding into emerging sectors. A critical pillar of our approach is dialogue. We actively engage stakeholders through consultations, policy discussions, and collaborative platforms to ensure that our trade strategies are grounded, inclusive, and responsive to the needs of the economy. This whole of government and whole of society approach strengthens both policy formulation and implementation. Finally, in an increasingly complex global environment characterized by geopolitical uncertainty, shifting supply chains, and sustainability imperatives, the need to widen and deepen trade relations has become even more urgent. The Philippines is well positioned to contribute to innovation driven industries, serve as a strategic trade and investment hub in Asia, and support global efforts towards sustainable and inclusive growth. Strengthening our international trade relations is not just an economic necessity, it is a strategic imperative. In closing, the Philippines will continue to pursue clear policy direction, data driven decision making, and sustained dialogue as it strengthens its role in the global trading system. These pillars will ensure that our trade policies remain responsive, inclusive, and aligned with long term national development objectives. Thank you, and we look forward to continued collaboration with all our partners.
Thank you very much, Attorney Gepti, for your insightful and inspiring keynote address. Allow me to read the citation on the Certificate of Appreciation to be awarded to our keynote speaker. This Certificate of Appreciation is awarded to Attorney Alan B. Gepti in grateful recognition and sincere appreciation of his invaluable services rendered as keynote speaker in the 2026 Data Dissemination Forum on International Merchandise Trade Statistics. Again, thank you very much, Attorney Gepti, Undersecretary of the International Trade Group, Department of Trade and Industry. And now, ladies and gentlemen, to present the 2025 IMTS data, may we now call on Assistant National Statistician Rachel C. Laksa of the Economic Sector Statistics Service.
To all our distinguished guests from the government and private sectors, my colleagues from the Philippine Statistics Authority, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant morning to all of you. I am pleased to present to you the International Merchandise Trade Statistics, or IMTS, for 2025. I will be presenting our data on Philippine exports, imports, and balance of trade. All values to be presented refer to free on board or FOB values in US dollars, except for the growth rates which are presented in percent. FOB means that the seller's obligation to deliver is fulfilled when the goods have passed over the ship's rail at the named port of shipment. This means that the buyer must bear all cost and risk of all loss or damage to the goods from that point. I will now present the 2025 International Merchandise Trade Statistics. First, for the exports of the Philippines, the graph shows the FOB value of the total exports for the period of 2010 to 2025. For the said period, the highest total value of exports, which amounted to 84.48 billion US dollars, was recorded in 2025. While the lowest total exports valued at 48.30 billion US dollars was registered in 2011. Still, for the period of 2010 to 2025, the highest annual increase in the total value of exports was observed in 2010, registering 34%. On the other hand, the highest annual decline was recorded in 2020 at 8.1%. The country's total export sales in 2025 amounted to 84.48 billion US dollars, indicating an annual increase of 15.3% from the 73.27 billion US dollars export value in 2024. The top exported commodity group of the country in terms of the total value of exports in 2025 was electronic products, with total earnings of 45.89 billion US dollars, or a share of 54.3% to the total exports in 2025. In terms of growth rate, the commodity group with the highest increase is gold, with export earnings of 2.62 billion US dollars in 2025. It grew by 94.7% in 2025 from the 1.35 billion US dollars export sales in 2024. In terms of FOB value, the commodity group with the highest increase is electronic products, with export earnings of 45.89 billion US dollars in 2025, which is higher by 6.79 billion US dollars compared with the 39.09 billion US dollars export value recorded in 2024. The top export trading partner of the Philippines in 2025 is the United States of America, or USA, with an export value of 13.46 billion US dollars, or a share of 15.9% to the total exports in 2025. The top exported commodity to the USA was electronic products. Across ASEAN member states, the Philippines ranked 6th in terms of total value of exports in 2025, while the top country was Singapore. Across regions in the country, the highest value of exports exited in the local ports of the National Capital Region, which amounted to 55.94 billion US dollars, or 66.2% share to the total export value in 2025. Now, I will present the data on the value of imports of the Philippines in 2025. For the period 2010 to 2025, the highest total imports was registered in 2022 at 137.22 billion US dollars, while the lowest total imports was observed in 2010 at 54.93 billion US dollars. Still, for the period 2010 to 2025, the highest annual growth rate for total imports was observed in 2021 at 13.1%, while the highest annual decline was recorded in 2020 during the start of the pandemic at 19.5%. In 2025, the Philippines had a total import value worth 134.20 billion US dollars. Compared with 2024, the value of imports in 2025 increased by 5.2%. The top imported commodity group of the country in terms of total value of imports in 2025 was electronic products, with an import value of 32.03 billion US dollars, or a share of 23.9% to the total imports in 2025. Among the imported commodity groups, animal and vegetable oils and fats, with import value of 2.23 billion US dollars in 2025, recorded the highest annual growth rate at 47.3% from its 1.51 billion US dollars import value in 2024. Among the imported commodity groups, electronic products registered the highest increase in terms of FOB value in 2025. Import value amounted to 32.03 billion US dollars in 2025, reflecting an increase of 4.65 billion US dollars from the 27.38 billion US dollars import value recorded in 2024. The top import trading partner of the Philippines in 2025 was the People's Republic of China, with an import value of 38.44 billion US dollars, or 28.6% share to the total imports in 2025. The top imported commodity from China was electronic products. Across ASEAN member states, the Philippines ranked 6th in terms of total value of imports in 2025, while the top country was Singapore. Among the regions in the country, majority of imports entered in the ports located in the National Capital Region, with an import value of 77.33 billion US dollars, or a share of 57.6% to the total imports in the country. I will now present the balance of trade in 2025. The balance of trade is equal to exports minus imports of the country. The balance of trade is positive if the exports are higher than imports or there is a trade surplus. On the other hand, if the balance of trade is negative, this means that the exports are lower than the imports or there is a trade deficit. In 2025, the Philippines registered a trade deficit amounting to 49.72 billion US dollars. Our trade deficit decreased by 8.5% year-on-year, or compared with the balance of trade in 2024. For the period of 2010 to 2025, the Philippines consistently registered trade deficit. The highest trade deficit during the period was registered in 2022 at negative 57.65 billion US dollars. Meanwhile, the lowest trade deficit was recorded in 2014 at negative 3.30 billion US dollars. To summarize the highlights of Philippine export statistics in 2025, the total value of exports was recorded at 84.48 billion US dollars. Among commodity groups, electronic products was the top exported with export value worth 45.89 billion US dollars. And among major trading partners, USA was the top country of destination of exported goods valued at 13.46 billion US dollars. To summarize the highlights of Philippine import statistics in 2025, the total value of imports was recorded at 134.20 billion US dollars. Among commodity groups, electronic products was the top imported, with import value amounting to 32.03 billion US dollars. And among major trading partners, People's Republic of China was the top country of origin of imported goods, with 38.44 billion US dollars. This ends my presentation for the 2025 International Merchandise Trade Statistics. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ANS Laksa, for that comprehensive and informative presentation. Let us now proceed to the next presentation. To present the January to March 2026 IMTS data, may we now call on Ms. Maria Julieta P. Sullivan, Chief Statistical Specialist of the Trade Statistics Division.
Good morning, everyone. I will now present the IMTS for the period January to March 2026. I will follow the same outline, and I will present first export, then imports, and balance of trade. For the export of the Philippines, from January to March 2026, the total value of export was recorded at 22.70 billion US dollars. This represents an annual increase of 12.7% compared with the January to March 2025 export sales of 20.14 billion US dollar. The top exported commodity group in terms of FOB value from January to March 2026 was electronic products with total earnings of 13.06 billion US dollars, or a share of 24.5% to the total export from January to March 2026. Among the exported commodity groups, fertilizers manufactured recorded the highest annual growth rate of 1,262.6% from January to March 2026. Export earnings increased to 7.18 million US dollars in January to March 2026 from a 0.53 million US dollars in January to March 2025. In terms of FOB value, electronic products posted the highest increase in the first quarter 2026. Export earnings reached 13.06 billion US dollars in January to March 2026, higher by 2.57 billion US dollars compared with the 10.49 billion US dollars recorded in the same period in 2025. The top export trading partner of the Philippines from January to March 2026 was United States of America, or USA, with an export value of 4.01 billion US dollars, accounting for 17.7% share to the total export value from January to March 2026. The top exported commodity to the USA were electronic products. I will now present the value of imports of the Philippines from January to March 2026. The total imports from January to March 2026 was valued at 35.50 billion US dollar. This represents an annual increase of 8.9% compared with the import value in January to March 2025 at 32.60 billion US dollar. The top imported commodity group of the country in terms of the total value from January to March 2026 was electronic products with an import value of 9.78 billion US dollars, or a share of 27.6% to the total imports from January to March 2026. Among imported commodity groups, power generating and specialized machinery with import value of 531.20 million US dollars registered the highest annual growth rate of 57.6% in January to March 2026 compared with the 337.15 million US dollar import value in the same period in 2025. Among the imported commodity groups, electronic products registered the highest increase in terms of FOB value during first quarter of 2026. Its import value amounted to 9.78 billion dollars in January to March 2026, reflecting an increase of 2.55 billion US dollars from 7.23 billion US dollars import value recorded in the same period of 2025. Top trading partner of the Philippines from January to March 2026 was the People's Republic of China with an import value of 10.10 billion US dollars or 28.5% share to total import value from January to March 2026. The top imported commodity from China was electronic products. I will now present the balance of trade from January to March 2026. Again, a positive balance of trade means trade surplus, while a negative balance of trade means trade deficit. The balance of trade reached a total deficit of negative 12.81 billion US dollars from January to March 2026. The trade deficit indicates an increase of 2.8% compared with the balance of trade in the same period of 2025. To summarize highlights of the Philippine export statistics from January to March 2026, the total value of export was recorded at 22.70 billion US dollar. Among commodity group, the top exported commodity with export value worth 13.06 billion US dollar. And among trading partners, USA was the top country of destination of exported goods valued at 4.01 billion US dollar. To summarize the highlights of the Philippine import statistics from January to March 2026, the total value of imports was recorded at 35.50 billion US dollars. Among the commodity groups, electronic products was the top imported commodity valued at 9.78 billion US dollars. Among the major trading partners, People's Republic of China was the top country of origin of imported goods with 10.10 billion US dollar. That's all. Thank you very much. For more information, please visit psa.gov.ph.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ma'am Cheng, for that thorough, informative. Before we proceed to the next part of our program, let's have first a short quiz. So may I invite everyone to join our short quiz by registering on the screen or on the link provided or shown on the screen. Again, may we invite everyone to join our short quiz. Kindly use the link shown on the screen. We'll give you few minutes to register. Okay, we will be using the quiz.com with the pin code 460584. Again, may we invite everyone for a short quiz using quiz.com with pin code 460584. Again, the pin code is 460584. Again, for this short quiz, we will be using the quiz.com with pin code 460584. As of we have 23 players. Okay, let's start. I guess we're ready. Question number 1. In 2025, what was the top exported commodity group in terms of free on board or FOB value of the Philippines? Choices are electronic equipment and parts, electronic products, other manufactured goods, or other mineral products. And the correct answer is electronic products. Question number 2. What is the top region in terms of FOB value of imports in 2025? Choices are National Capital Region, Region 3 or Central Luzon, Region 7 or Central Visayas, or Region 11 Davao Region. And the correct answer is the National Capital Region. And for our last question, double points. From January to March 2026, what exported commodity group has the highest annual growth rate in terms of FOB value? Choices are electronic products, fertilizers manufactured, other manufactured goods, or power generating specialized machinery. And the correct answer is fertilizer manufactured. And that's the end of our short quiz, and congratulations to our top 3. Third place, we have Papa Data. Second place, Sir Data. And our winner is Dr. Street. Congratulations, everyone, and thank you for your active participation. At this moment, let us listen to the presentation of our first discussant. She is the director of the Bureau of Policy Research and Innovation, or BPRI, under the Competitiveness and Innovation Group of the Department of Trade and Industry. The BPRI is the primary research and innovation arm of DTI with core functions on providing empirical-based policy recommendations and insights for DTI top management, as well as supporting the development of the national innovation and startup ecosystem. She also concurrently serves as the administrative head of the Tatak Pinoy Council Secretariat, or TPCS, which oversees the implementation of the Tatak Pinoy strategy. She holds a Juris Doctor degree from the Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Maynila College of Law and a Master of Business Administration degree from the Asian Institute of Management, or AIM. Ladies and gentlemen, let's listen to our first discussant, Director Maria Teresa G. Faustino.
Magandang umaga po sa lahat. Magandang umaga po sa lahat. I would like to thank the Philippine Statistics Authority for inviting the Department of Trade and Industry to participate once again in the IMTS Data Dissemination Forum. It is an honor for the Bureau of Policy Research and Innovation to present our insights in today's discussions. Today, I will briefly share how the Bureau utilizes international merchandise trade statistics, or the IMTS, in supporting policy research, economic analysis, and strategic decision-making. For the department, trade statistics is one of our main tools in monitoring exports and imports performance. They serve as critical evidence-based inputs in policy formulation, trade negotiations, investment analysis, and even in crisis response and scenario planning. As policymakers and researchers, we rely on the IMTS to better understand trade trends, commodity movements, market dynamics, and the Philippines' engagement in the global economy. So in this presentation, I will briefly walk you through several examples of how the Bureau applies trade statistics in our analytical work, and how these insights connect with actual trade developments and emerging economic challenges. So to provide a brief context, the Bureau of Policy Research and Innovation serves as the primary policy research and innovation arm of the Department of Trade and Industry. Our core functions include provision of evidence-based policy recommendations and insights to the department through the various research outputs that we deliver. Our bureau also supports the development of national innovation and startup ecosystem. On the right side of your screen, you can see some of the major outputs and services of the BPRI where trade statistics play a very important role. One of our major outputs is this Trade and Investment Relations Report, or the TIR. The TIR provides a snapshot of the Philippines' economic relations with partner countries and regional economic blocs. It includes selected macroeconomic data of the partner country and bilateral trade and investment-related information that allows decision makers to easily view both trade and investment developments in a single report, making the TIR a more comprehensive and accessible reference for policy and economic discussions. So the TIR is widely used not only within the DTI, but also by other government agencies such as the Office of the President, the Department of Foreign Affairs, Department of Finance, and the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. In many cases, the TIR forms part of the briefing materials of the Philippine delegation during foreign trips, during bilateral meetings and negotiations and engagement with international delegates. So the 2025 IMTS results further demonstrate how trade statistics support the department's policy analysis, trade monitoring, FTA assessment, and scenario planning functions discussed in the previous slides. In 2025, total exports reached 84.48 billion US dollars, posting a strong 15.3% growth from 2024, while imports increased by 5.2% to to a value of 134.20 billion US dollars. Notably, exports sustained positive year-on-year growth throughout 2025, reflecting resilient external demand despite persistent global economic and geopolitical uncertainties. Electronic products remain the country's dominant export and import commodity, accounting for more than half of the total exports and total nearly one-fourth of total imports. Sorry. Highlighting the Philippines' continued integration in regional and global electronics value chain. The United States remained as the country's top export market, while China continued to be the largest source of imports, reflecting the strategic importance of these economies in Philippine trade and supply chain linkages. Meanwhile, the country's trade deficit narrowed by 8.5% in 2025 to USD $49.72 billion, indicating relatively faster export growth during the year. It is also said that this year's deficit is the lowest since 2022, lowest in 4 years. For the first quarter of 2026, trade performance remained positive, with exports growing by 12.7% year-on-year to 22.70 billion US dollars, outpacing import growth of 89% for the year. So electronic products continued to drive trade growth, while the United States, Hong Kong, and Japan remained the country's top export destination. I also note that the February 2026 deficit in goods is the lowest since 2022. These trends are particularly relevant in the context of TIR preparation and FTA feasibility studies, as they help identify strategically important markets and major trade dependencies that may influence future trade negotiations and policy directions. So the US remains the country's top export destination with export shipments valued at 13.46 billion US dollars. We note that the simulation exercise that BPRI performed to assess the potential impact of the Trump reciprocal tariffs yielded results that are not too far from the results of the IMTS 2025. Using trade simulation models and IMTS data, the analysis estimated that the Philippines could incur export losses amounting to around 2 billion US dollars. This is equivalent to an estimated 18% decline in Philippine exports to the United States for a 3.05% decline in total Philippine exports and around 0.51% reduction in the gross domestic product. The simulation also identified the sectors that may be most affected, particularly electronic components and wiring products. What makes the analysis significant is that the simulation results closely align with the actual IMTS trade patterns. As shown on the right side, the United States remained the Philippines' top export destination in both 2025 and the first quarter of 2026, while electronics, particularly semiconductors that have been exempted from the Trump tariffs, continued to dominate Philippine exports. This suggests that the sectors projected to experience the largest tariff-related impacts are also among the country's most important export sectors based on actual trade data. Since these industries account for a substantial share of Philippine exports and are highly integrated into global production networks, any increase in tariffs or trade restrictions could have broader implications on export earnings, manufacturing activity, and overall trade performance. At the same time, the analysis highlights the importance of continuously monitoring trade statistics and conducting scenario planning exercises to better assess external risk, identify vulnerable sectors, and support evidence-based trade and industrial policy responses. The IMTS results also provide useful insights when viewed alongside the scenario planning exercise on the Middle East crisis. In the simulations conducted by our Bureau, rising global oil prices were projected to significantly affect Philippine trade performance. Under the US dollars 100, 150, and 200 per barrel scenarios, the regression models projected continued increases in both exports and imports, although accompanied by higher trade costs and foreign exchange pressures. Interestingly, the actual March 2026 trade results partly reflect these projected dynamics. Despite the sharp increase in Dubai crude prices, Philippine exports and imports still posted positive growth last March. This suggests that external demand and production activity remained relatively resilient in the immediate term, particularly in electronics and manufacturing-related sectors. However, the increase in imports of mineral fuels and related products also reflects the country's continued exposure to rising global energy prices and external supply shocks. The scenario planning exercise also highlighted the Philippines' dependence on imported petroleum products and the risk posed by disruptions in global oil supply chains. Around 1/4 of Philippine petroleum imports in 2025 came from Gulf Cooperation Council countries, while the rest of the imported petroleum products come from South Korea, China, Singapore, Malaysia, and Taiwan. This reinforces the importance of continuously monitoring trade statistics not only to track trade performance but also to assess vulnerabilities in energy supply chains, evaluate potential impacts of geopolitical conflicts, and support evidence-based policy responses. We also check the revealed comparative advantage of the top Philippine exports in 2025. The table on the right side of your screen shows the top 10 Philippine export products in 2025 and their RCA values together with their corresponding RCA levels. Most of the products listed remain classified as classics, meaning they consistently maintained comparative advantage across both periods. Among the country's strongest export products are electronic integrated circuits, ignition wiring sets, storage units for automatic data processing machines, crude coconut oil, bananas, nickel ores, and concentrates, statistic converters. These products continue to demonstrate strong competitiveness in global markets and remain among the country's key export specializations. Electronic integrated circuits, excluding processors, controllers, memories, and amplifiers, recorded an RCA increase from 9.31 in 2024 to 11.32 in 2025, further strengthening its comparative advantage. Fresh or dried bananas also posted improved competitiveness, with RCA increasing from 28.75 to 32.82. Meanwhile, nickel ores and concentrates recorded one of the largest increases among the top 10 products, rising from 84 in 2024 to 112.79 in 2025, reflecting stronger export specialization and sustained global demand for mineral products. However, some electronics-related products experienced slight declines in RCA values despite remaining competitive. For example, the electronic integrated circuits as memories declined from 4.81 to 2.67, while ignition wiring sets and storage units for automatic data processing machines also recorded lower RCA values when compared to 2025. Nevertheless, these products continue to retain RCA values well above 1, indicating that the Philippines still maintains comparative advantage in these sectors. So from 2024 to 2025, classics export goods increased by 4.21%, indicating stronger concentration in established competitive products, while emerging champions declined by 42.42% and disappearing products fell by 36.11%, suggesting fewer products transitioning into or remaining in competitive export positions. Meanwhile, marginal products slightly increased by 2.17%. So the NRCA analysis helps us identify which products the Philippines holds sustained emerging or declining comparative advantage in the global market. The chart on the left compares the distribution of Philippine export value across the 4 NRCA quadrants that are formed between the average NRCA for period 1 covering the years 2016 to 2020 and the average for period 2 covering the years 2021 to 2025. Classic winners can be found at the top right, products with comparative advantage in both the first period up to the second period. So one of the most notable findings in the significant rise of products classified as emerging champions in 2016, emerging champions accounted for only 1.4% of total export value, equivalent to around 1.02 billion US dollars. By 2025, this expanded substantially to 53.2% of total export value for around 44.59 billion. This indicates that a large number of Philippine export products that previously had limited or weak comparative advantage were able to strengthen their competitiveness and gain stronger positions in international markets over time. Meanwhile, products classified as classics or products with sustained comparative advantage across both periods remained relatively stable and continued to contribute significantly to export performance. Their share increased slightly from 34.9% in 2016 to 37.4% in 2025, increasing in value from USD 25.47 billion to 31.35 billion US dollars. This reflects the continued strength of the country's traditional export sectors. On the other hand, products classified as disappearing significantly declined both in value and export share, their contribution dropping from 9.3% of total export value in 2016 to less than 1% in 2025. This suggests that products which previously exhibited comparative advantage may have lost their competitiveness due to changing global demand, stronger international competition, or structural shifts in production and trade. At the same time, marginal products still account for the largest number of export goods. Their overall contribution to export value declined substantially from 31.6% to 8.4%. This indicates that the Philippine exports have become increasingly concentrated in products with stronger global competitiveness. So these findings also align closely with the latest IMTS results discussed earlier. Electronic products, mineral-based exports, and manufactured goods continue to dominate the Philippine exports and remain among the sectors with strong or improving comparative advantage. Overall, the RCA analysis complements IMTS results by providing a deeper perspective on the competitiveness and structural evolution of Philippine exports, while IMTS identifies the country's leading export products in terms of trade value. RCA helps determine whether these products are globally competitive and whether the Philippines is strengthening or losing comparative advantage over time. So these analyses are particularly useful in supporting trade policy formulation, export development strategies, FTA studies, industrial upgrading initiatives, and identification of potential growth sectors for the Philippine economy. So recommendations. Yeah. So now for our key reflections and recommendations, we'd like to highlight several opportunities for improvement and possible areas for collaboration in further strengthening the country's trade statistics system and its use for policy making and research. First, we are recommending the further harmonization of Philippine trade statistics with international databases. One recurring challenge encountered by the Bureau is the discrepancy between PSA trade data and the data published in international databases such as the UN Comtrade, the World Bank database, and the International Trade Center, and other global platforms. These differences often result in inconsistencies between DTI reports and studies published by researchers, academe, and international organizations. Improving harmonization and alignment across these databases would help enhance data consistency, comparability, and credibility of trade-related analysis and policy discussions. This was also raised during FTA meetings or talks with counterparts, as the negotiations have to establish a basic reference framework that would be used by both sides. Second, we also recommend maximizing the use of IMTS as a tool for the monitoring and evaluation of the Tak Pinoy strategy or TPS priority sectors. The TPS being the country's first industrial policy backed by law, the Tak Pinoy Act. So trade statistics can support evidence-based assessment of the performance of the country's nine priority sectors by tracking export growth, competitiveness, revealed comparative advantage, diversification, and market trends over time. Through the IMTS, policymakers can better identify emerging champions, monitor sectoral progress, evaluate policy outcomes, and guide strategic interventions aligned with the objectives of Tatak Pinoy. So in line with these recommendations, we would like to reaffirm the department's support for initiatives that will strengthen the country's trade statistics system, particularly through improved data harmonization, standardized formats, and clearer data exchange mechanisms to ensure timely, accurate, and policy-relevant trade statistics. We appreciate how helpful the IMTS is and really the whole PSA system when it comes to providing an accurate statistical picture for our country. I think that's it's my last slide na po. Yeah. So thank you very much po to everyone. Thank you for listening.
Tino, for your comprehensive and insightful presentation. Let me read the citation on the Certificate of Appreciation to be awarded to our first discussant. This Certificate of Appreciation is awarded to Attorney Maria Teresa G. Faustino in grateful recognition and sincere appreciation of her invaluable services rendered as discussant in the 2026 Data Dissemination Forum on International Merchandise Trade Statistics. Thank you once again, Attorney Faustino. We now welcome our second discussant. He is the Director 3 of the Trade, Services, and Industry Staff of the Department of Economy, Planning, and Development. He served as the Chief of the Macroeconomic Division of the National Policy and Planning Staff of the same institution. His work experience covers applied quantitative and qualitative policy analysis, teaching, field research, and community organizing. Aside from his usual office duties and responsibilities, he occasionally represents the country in foreign gatherings, particularly those that are led by the multilaterals such as the IMF, UN, WTO, ADB, ASEAN, and APEC. He earned his Bachelor of Arts in Economics from Bicol University as cum laude. He also holds 2 postgraduate degrees from the University of the Philippines, Diploma in Research and Development Management, and Diploma in Environment and Natural Resources Management. Under the scholarship of the International Monetary Fund, he finished his Master of Arts in International Development with distinction from the International University of Japan. Complementing his educational credentials are the short-term economic policy courses that he took from domestic and foreign institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, our second discussant, Director Richard Emerson D. Ballester.
Good morning to everyone. Secretariat, kindly flash my presentation, please, the one that I sent. Thank you. So to all the distinguished participants of the 2026 Dissemination Forum on IMTS, honorable officials of the PSA and DTI, colleagues, friends, good morning. Please allow me to present within a few minutes regarding DepEd's view on the IMTS. Next slide, please. My presentation is divided into 2 parts, observation on the IMTS and some insights on the data. Next slide, please. Next slide. Right. In every release of the IMTS, it is good to note that there are around 12 tabs in spreadsheet corresponding to the various dimensions of the Philippine external trade in goods. This is for the monthly release, while the annual release has around 18 tabs. Shown in the screen is the line graph of the annual growth of merchandise imports, merchandise exports, and total merchandise growth. Total merchandise growth exhibited a slight upward trend for 36 months. So we have 7.8% in 2023, 0.5% in 2024, and 8.9% in 2025. Likewise, imports growth demonstrated the same. It's -8% in 2023, 1.1% in 2024, and 5.2% in 2025. The same observation is also true for exports growth, -7.5% in 2023, 0.5% in 2024, and 15.3% in 2025. Next slide, please. The balance of trade in goods has consistently been exhibiting deficit. In 2023, this deficit was registered at 52.6 billion pesos, slightly increased to 54.3 billion pesos in 2024, but it posted weaker at 49.7 billion in 2025. So in terms of growth, the balance of trade in goods episodes, particularly in 2024, demonstrated strong gains. In September and October of 2024, for instance, it went to 43.8% and 37.1% respectively. Next slide, please. What makes the IMTS more informative is that it has the decomposition of the balance of trade in goods with the trading partners useful for analytical purposes. It presents the country partners clustered in terms of the value of trading. It also presents the trading partners in terms of the various blocks, such as the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, or APEC, the European Union, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, and in terms of geographical groupings. These data are important for policymakers because they can be used to support further improvements or enhancement of trade relations with other economies. Next slide, please. Looking into the most recent IMTS data, the seasonally adjusted series released for the March 2026 figures showed an uptick of the total exports, buoyed by manufactured goods and mineral products. However, agro-based products exports demonstrated a contraction. It appears that the impact of the US-Iran war has not yet been factored in by the export sector at the time that this was released. Next slide, please. Imports demonstrated also vibrancy for the March 2026 release. This was due to the strong performance of raw materials and intermediate goods. Gains, however, were partially offset by the decline of capital goods and consumer goods. Next slide, please. This slide shows the growth rates of the Unit Value Index, or the UVI, of exports and imports. The UVI is an economic indicator that measures the change in the average price of the average price or value of a specific group of imported or exported goods over time. It is calculated by dividing the trade value of the goods by their total quantity. Policymakers use UVIs to measure trade inflation, monitor market competitiveness, and act as a trade deflator to convert nominal external trade figures into real volume estimates. For 2025, the UVI of exported goods registered a slower annual increase due to works of arts, collector's pieces, and antiques section. But in the import side, it contributed to a faster speed. Note that the figures were just leaked based on the available published spreadsheets in the website. There may already have been an update or revision on the series, and I think this was recently published by the PSA. Next slide, please. So we give some insights on the data. Next slide, please. So why is the IMTS crucial for economic work? If we look into main macroeconomic accounts, we can see that the IMTS has two main uses. One is in the external sector, which is under the balance of payments, specifically within the current account. The other one is on the real sector, which is within the national accounts, particularly on the expenditure side. The linkages only demonstrate how important the IMTS data in ensuring the integrity of the other macroeconomic accounts. From the microeconomic perspective, it leads to a picture of the industries, MSMEs in particular, including the spatial dimension of these exports and import figures. Next slide, please. The IMTS has many uses for economic analysis. It can be used for impact analysis, scenario building, forecasting, or even projection, and modeling. It can be a gauge of economic fundamentals. For instance, one can use it to predict how the CAB will behave over the next several months. Because of that, indirectly, it can be used to project the depreciation or appreciation of the currency. Next slide, please. Looking into the longer time series data, the gap is increasing. We can see this evidently in the monthly, quarterly, and annual data. The widening gap started around 2014, and since then, it has been widening. If not for the COVID-19 pandemic, the gap could have widened further. Next slide, please. For the last 3 decades, if one will look closer into the details of imports, driving the gap is mainly the growth of imports, specifically on raw materials and intermediate goods and capital goods, followed by the emerging accelerated growth of mineral fuel and lubricants and consumer goods. In terms of the structure of imports, it remains highly tilted to capital goods and raw materials and intermediated goods. But the increasing share of mineral fuels and lubricants and consumer goods are increasingly noticeable. Next slide, please. On exports, its 3 decade growth revealed that there are opportunities for expansion, with the lion's share of the structure driven by manufacturers. Manufacturers and agri-based products could be a good combination to boost the export sector. Next slide, please. Using the quarterly data from 1991 up to March of 2026, exports and imports appear not to granger cross each other. Of course, the test confirms this, and the time series plot of the year-on-year differencing of exports and import data show no clear evidence about this. Interestingly, it appears that a regular cycle of exports is emerging beginning 2010. Similarly, the regular cycle for imports is emerging beginning 2015. Next slide, please. So, summing up, PSA deserves an applause. Why? Because it releases within time, quality, and highly informative IMTS data. It provides data that can be downloaded in the website in spreadsheet format. But of course, there are rooms for improvement. The first one is we need to revisit, of course, the format of the data sets. So it's important if we use similar to those that is being used by the World Bank and the IMF, just for the IMTS data, for the easier not the accessibility, but the user friendliness actually of the data. But as of now, it's already a good one, but it could be improved more. Then consider publishing a much longer time series. So if you're making an analytical work, it would be better if you have a longer data set. The next one is separate the trend and cycle of the exports and import series, because currently, right now, the trend and cycle is just lumped in the estimation process as published in every release. The next one is further increase the digitalization of data collection. So PSA is doing well in this area, but of course I know that there are still many things to be done in this aspect. and then continue linking and reconciling with the BSP and other external trade related stakeholders that generate data. Okay, I think that ends my presentation, and thank you to all for listening to my presentation. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Director Ballester, for your valuable insights. Allow me to read the citation on the Certificate of Appreciation to be awarded to our second discussant. This Certificate of Appreciation is awarded to Director Richard Emerson D. Ballester in grateful recognition and sincere appreciation of his invaluable services rendered as discussant in the 2026 Data Dissemination Forum on International Merchandise Trade Statistics. Thank you once again, Director Ballester. Let's proceed to our next discussant. He focuses on macroeconomic and fiscal policy analysis and supports the Assistant Secretary heading the OCE in providing macro fiscal advisory, particularly regarding the fiscal implications of trade policy developments. Prior to his current role, he served as Senior Economic Officer at the Embassy of the Netherlands in Manila and a Senior Economist at the Embassy of the Republic of Korea. There, he supported trade negotiations and promotions, advised on bilateral economic developments, and helped facilitate cooperation between the Philippines and partner countries. He completed a ladderized honors program at De La Salle University, earning both a Bachelor of Science in Applied Economics and a Master of Science in Economics with studies in public finance, international trade, and macroeconomic policy. Ladies and gentlemen, our third discussant, Mr. Gabriel Inigo M. Hernandez, Economist 5 of the Office of the Chief Economist, Department of Finance.
Hello, good morning. Hello? Well, to everyone. Yes. Okay, thank you. Good morning. I'm Gab Hernandez from the Office of the Chief Economist of the Department of Finance. I want to build on what PSA and our fellow discussants have already presented, specifically how DOF reads and uses these numbers and where we think data can do more work for policy. Next slide, please. The numbers have been already walked through by the PSA and my fellow discussants, so I will not repeat them. What I want to add is the macroeconomic context in which DOF is reading these data prints on external trade. The Philippine economy grew 2.8% in the first quarter of 2026, its weakest print since 2009 outside the pandemic years. With that 2.8 print, public construction has contracted, household consumption slowed, and also, as of February, the Middle East conflict is transmitting through oil prices, transport costs, and remittances in ways we continue to monitor closely. Against that backdrop, the trade performance is one of the brighter spots that we could focus on the macroeconomy. Full year 2025 exports reached 84.5 billion, up 15.3%. And in Q1 2026, exports grew further to 22.7 billion, up 12.7% from 20.1 in the same period in 2025. March alone posted 20.4% growth, and this is the strongest one that we've had for the first 3 months of the year. On the other side, imports for Q1 2026 came in at 35.5 billion, up 8.9% from Q1 2025. Q1 2025 was 32.6 billion. The trade deficit widened slightly to 12.8 billion from 12.5 billion in 2025 first quarter. The 2.8 it's presented a 2.8% increase. That is worth noting, but our view at DOF is that composition of that deficit matters more than its size. I will come back to that later. Next slide, please. PSA has presented the expert figures. What I want to offer is the DOF interpretation. Philippine exports held their ground from 2019 through 2025 through genuinely difficult conditions, a pandemic, a global semiconductor downturn, and successive rounds of geopolitical disruptions. The 15.3% full year growth in 2025 reflects a meaningful recovery led by electronics and manufactured goods, which continued to benefit the sustained global technology demand. Uh, uh, in support of that, mineral exports, particularly gold and nickel, strengthened that base, with agro and base exports showing pretty much the same numbers. It's important to ask the question, what is driving the current momentum of this trade activities? That is the global AI infrastructure build-out. The scale of investment being directed at AI is generating sustained high volume demand for semiconductor components that the Philippines produces. This is not a transitory rebound. And also, there's signals coming from the trade organizations on semiconductors and electronics, SAPI, which projects electronics could cross the 50 billion mark this year. That is a structural tailwind, and it's a material part of what is keeping our external position stable while our other growth drivers face pressure. That said, the top 10 commodities still account for 88% of export revenue. Stronger export support foreign exchange earnings, peso stability, and our current account, all of which matter directly to DOF's fiscal work, but concentration is a vulnerability that we track carefully. Next slide, please. On imports, the headline growth of 8.9% in Q1 2026 tends to draw attention to the deficit. The DOF reading focuses on its composition. Raw materials and intermediate goods remain the dominant share. Supply chain demand consistent with an economy oriented toward production. It is worth noting that total import in Q1 2025 had already accelerated to 6.9%, signaling that production activity was picking up even before the stronger Q1 2026 figures. Capital goods are more the new one story here. They declined 6.7% in Q1 2026 after strong growth in prior periods, reflecting a temporary pullback in infrastructure and industrial investment. The moderation is worth watching, but it needs to be read against the medium-term trend rather than in isolation. One quarter does not reverse the structural shift toward higher capital goods intensity in our import bill. Consumer goods, meanwhile, grew just 0.1%. This shows overall that deficit is not being driven by households consuming imported finished goods. It is being driven by production inputs. This is where the continued refinement of IMTS classifications would add real value, helping us understand shifts like capital goods moderation with greater precision. Next slide, please. Here in this slide, we post a question, and the data gives us an answer that is more nuanced than a simple yes or no. On capital goods, the medium-term trend is still encouraging. The share of capital in total imports has been rising from a pre-pandemic growth baseline of 6.1% to 10.4% in Q1 2025. The first quarter 2026 growth rate of negative 6.7% is a quarterly pullback, not a structural reversal. When capital goods maintain an elevated share of total imports, even through a period of declining growth, it suggests that underlying investment orientation of our import bill remains intact. That said, monitoring whether this pullback extends into subsequent quarters is important. On durable goods, growth was 18.0% in Q1 2025, but contracted to 26.9% in Q1 2026. That is a sharp reversal. It could reflect normalization after a period of elevated purchases, or it could signal softening demand for longer-lived goods among businesses and households. The honest answer we have here is that we cannot be certain because current classification does not cleanly separate durable goods used by businesses from those going to household consumption. That is the area where we can see an opportunity to deepen collaboration with the PSA. When capital and durable goods are moving in unexpected directions, understanding who is driving those shifts, whether it be businesses or households, matters enormously for fiscal incentive design and investment monitoring. Enhanced end-use classification, particularly for durable goods, would allow DOF and other data users to draw those distinctions with confidence. It is the kind of refinement that would strengthen the analytical value of IMPS across government, and we look forward to working with PSA towards that. Next slide, please. This is where trade data moves from analysis to action and where the policy value of IMTS is more directly felt at DOF. Through revenue optimization, the approach is not higher tariffs, but better target. Commodity level import data by country of origin allows us to identify categories where declared values are inconsistent with expected patterns, where undervaluation of smuggling tends to concentrate. Improved granularity translates directly into more effective customs administration and additional revenue without any new tax measure. And on trade diversification, the PHUAE SEPA has been concluded. Negotiations with Canada and the EU are ongoing. Market access agreements create opportunities, but the IMTS tells us whether exporters are actually utilizing them, which sectors are gaining traction in non-traditional markets, and where fiscal incentives are most efficiently deployed. Policy should follow the data, not precede it. And then for the last one, it's going to be risk mitigation. With export revenue concentrated in a narrow set of commodities and import sourcing concentrated among a limited number of partners, a single external shock can move the current account, the exchange rate, and the fiscal position simultaneously. IMTS provides one of the earliest signals that conditions are shifting. The timeliness of the signal determines how much room we have to respond before the pressure shows up in the macro aggregates. Next slide, please. And here are 4 points to close. Export value added is real. The AI tailwind is extending our electronics momentum, but 88% concentration is a vulnerability that requires continued diversification efforts. On the productive imports, raw materials, and intermediate goods dominating the import bill reflect supply chain-driven demand. The moderation in capital and durable goods growth in Q1 2026 is worth monitoring as a potential signal of softening investment activity. Deficit quality matters more than deficit size. The composition of the $12.8 billion deficit is what determines the appropriate policy response coming from the government. And on data collaboration, PSA's continued refinement of IMTS classifications, particularly on durable goods and use, and faster preliminary releases, would strengthen macroeconomic surveillance across all agencies. The theme of this forum says it's well, stronger data partnership leads to more informed decisions. Next slide, please. And that concludes my presentation for today. And I look forward to your questions later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hernandez, for your valuable input and discussion. Let me read the citation on the Certificate of Appreciation to be awarded to our third discussant. This Certificate of Appreciation is awarded to Mr. Gabriel Inigo M. Hernandez in grateful recognition and sincere appreciation of his invaluable services rendered as discussant in the 2026 Data Dissemination Forum on International Merchandise Trade Statistics. Once again, thank you very much, Mr. Hernandez. And finally, we have our fourth discussant. He is a former director of the Ateneo Center for Economic Research and Development, or ASERD. He is currently an ASERD Senior Research Fellow. He graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree in Economics from the Ateneo de Manila University in 2004. He obtained his PhD in Economics from the same university in 2018. His current areas of research include macroeconomics, development economics, and financial economics. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome Assistant Professor of the Department of Economics, Ateneo de Manila University, Dr. Sir Percival K. Peña Reyes.
Good day, everyone, and I'm here to share my insights on the international merchandise trade statistics. And I would like to begin with the final results for 2025. So I would like to note that these figures quite encouraging because there appeared to be strong external demand for Philippine goods. As the data show, exports grew by 15.3%, much faster than imports. And this kind of export acceleration would usually signal several things. One, it could be competitive industries. Another would be recovering global demand, or perhaps improved production capacity, or maybe even stronger participation in regional supply chains. So it may also reflect strength in sectors such as electronics or services linked manufacturing, agribusiness, or mineral products. So this is quite positive. Secondly, exports outpacing imports is a positive signal. Imports still increased, but only by 5.2%. So since exports expanded much faster than imports did, our trade gap narrowed somewhat. So 2024, it was about $54.33 billion. And in 2025, it became $49.72 billion. So a shrinking trade deficit can indicate improving external stability and stronger foreign exchange earnings. Third would be domestic economic activity remaining active. Okay? Rising imports also matter because imports often include machinery, fuel, raw materials, and consumer goods. So continued import growth would suggest that businesses and consumers were still spending and investing rather than retrenching sharply. Another interesting point here, there appeared to be resilience amid global volatility. So in tumultuous times, such as geopolitical tensions, inflation pressures, supply chain disruptions, or slower global growth, double-digit export growth is especially significant. Okay? And this would suggest that the economy was able to do three things. One, perhaps adapt to changing trade conditions. Okay? Two, maintain investor and buyer confidence. And three, sustain productive activity in 2025. Nevertheless, vulnerabilities remain. Okay? The country still imported far more than it exported. So we've seen that consistently. We are a net importing country. Okay? A nearly 50 billion US dollar trade deficit means that the Philippines continues to rely heavily on foreign goods, energy, and industrial inputs. Okay? So we are really feeling that quite meaningfully right now. Okay? But all told, long-term resilience would improve further through industrial upgrading, export diversification, food and energy security, and higher value manufacturing. And many economists have been saying this. So the figures suggest that the Philippine economy showed a notable degree of resilience in 2025 despite global uncertainty. And overall, these trends point to an economy that was not merely surviving global turbulence, but showing adaptive strength, particularly through export performance, while still facing structural challenges tied to its persistent trade deficit. Now I move on to insights on the first quarter of this year, the preliminary results. Okay, so I would like to go about this thematically again. Okay, the first would be export growth remaining robust. Okay, exports increased by 12.7% year on year, rising from 20.14 billion US dollars to 22.7 US dollars. Sustained double-digit export growth suggests that Philippine producers continued to find strong demand abroad despite global uncertainties such as slowing growth in major economies, geopolitical tensions, and volatile commodity markets. And so this points to improving competitiveness and perhaps adaptability in export-oriented sectors. Okay? Second, exports again grew faster than imports. Okay? Imports rose by 8.9%, slower than export growth. And this matters because it implies that external earnings are improving faster than external spending. So the trade deficit still exists, but the pace suggests gradual external rebalancing. Okay? First quarter of 2025, trade deficit stood at $12.46 billion, while in the first quarter of 2026, it stood at about $12.8 billion. Okay? Although the nominal deficit slightly widened here, export performance remained comparatively stronger relative to import growth pressures. Okay? Another point, domestic demand and investment activity remained intact. Continued import growth indicates that firms and households were still purchasing the following things: okay? Capital equipment, industrial inputs, fuel, and consumer goods. And this would suggest that economic activity did not stall despite global instability. Okay? Another point, the economy appears increasingly shock absorbent. Okay? So maintaining healthy trade expansion during turbulent periods often reflects diversified trade relationships, resilient supply chains, stable remittance and consumption support, and also perhaps improving business confidence. So the Philippines appears capable of sustaining momentum even while external conditions remain uncertain. Okay? Still, and this point was made earlier, structural vulnerabilities remain. Okay? Imports still significantly exceeded exports, and this would indicate continued dependence on imported energy, machinery, and intermediate goods. So again, another point worth making, long-term resilience would benefit from expanding higher value exports, strengthening domestic manufacturing, improving agricultural productivity, and reducing reliance on imported essentials. And I think this lesson is being learned more meaningfully now again in this crisis. Okay? So overall, the first quarter of 2026 figures suggest an economy that continued to grow through uncertainty with strong export performance serving as a key stabilizing force. And the trends indicate a degree of adaptive resilience and sustained economic momentum despite ongoing global turbulence. So I hope that continue despite the challenges, showing remarkable improvements in our external performance. So I would like to end there. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
That enrich today's discussion. Allow me to read the citation on the Certificate of Appreciation to be awarded to our last discussant. This Certificate of Appreciation is awarded to Dr. Sir Percival K. Peña Reyes in grateful recognition and sincere appreciation of his invaluable services rendered as discussant in the 2026 Data Dissemination Forum on International Merchandise Trade Statistics. Thank you once again, Dr. Peña Reyes. For the next part of our forum, let us proceed to the open forum. Moderating this part of the program is the Chief Statistical Specialist of the Expenditure and Integrated Accounts Division of the Macroeconomic Accounts Service of the PSA. Let's all welcome Mr. Anthony B. Abalos.
Ms. Rachel Laksa, as well as from the Chief Statistical Specialist of the Trade Statistics Division, Ms. Maria Julieta Sullivan, and the insights and perspectives on the latest trade statistics and related issues by our keynote speaker, Attorney Alan Jepti, the Undersecretary of the International Trade Group of the Department of Trade and Industry, and our four discussants, namely Attorney Maria Teresa Faustino, the OIC Director of the Bureau of Policy Research and Innovation of the Department of Trade and Industry, Mr. Richard Emerson Ballester, the Director 3 of the Trade Services and Industry Staff of the Department of Economy, Planning and Development, Dr. Sir Percival Peña Reyes, Senior Research Fellow of the Ateneo Center for Economic Research and Development and Assistant Professor of the Ateneo de Manila University, and last but not the least, Mr. Gabriel Inigo Hernandez, Economist 4 of the Office of the Chief Economist of the Department of Finance. We will now proceed with the question and answer portion. Before we begin, I would like to remind everyone to keep their questions concise and relevant to the topic. If you have any questions or clarifications, please feel free to type them in the chat box or use the raise hand button. Once you are called or recognized, please state your name and the institution you are affiliated to, as well as to whom the question is being addressed. Again, let us now start our open forum. Someone from the participants online, do you have questions for our panelists as well as the presenters of the results and discussants? Medyo nahihiya pa yata yung mga nasa online participants. Meron pa tayo from the on-site participants. Wala po ba? Okay, siguro before, baka nahihiya pa yung mga nasa participants natin. I have listed some lang naman po for the data providers, specifically for the TSD. First one, we deeply appreciated the Trade Statistics Division and the ESSS on continuously providing timely and reliable IMTS data as inputs in our team. No? For our team, the National Accounts of the Philippines, may we ask the team for some of the future improvements from your team that are already in the pipeline, specifically for the generation of the IMTS?
Thank you, Anthony, for that question. No? In the past years, we have already improved our data, particularly our releases. In the last year, 2025, we started releasing the IMTS data, particularly our press release, from 40 days to 30 days after the reference period. So we have released it earlier than before. We also started releasing the IMTS, or International Merchandise Trade Statistics for agriculture commodities, from the quarterly basis to a monthly basis. So we release it more frequently as requested during the past IMTS Data Dissemination Forum. We have also started releasing in the recent years yung ating unit value index, no, and we are so happy to hear Director Richard that's very useful for their analysis. And as part of the pipeline for the improvements in the coming months, we have recently, or the PSA board in its recent meeting, approved the rebasing of the unit value index from 2018 base year to 2023 base year. So this coming first quarter of 2026, we will be releasing the 2023 base unit value index, which improves yung accuracy and reliability ng ating index. The rebasing, of course, improves or updates yung weights natin na ginagamit for the computation of the UVI as well as the market basket. So it is more reliable and it's more accurate and reflects the average measure, the changes in the average unit value of the imported and exported commodity groups. We are also happy to see that Director Ballester used yung ating seasonally adjusted series for their analysis. And to answer some questions in relation to that, I noted yung mga recommendations for improvement ng ating data on IMTS. Director Ballester highlighted yung revisiting ng format ng datasets. We have been revisiting the format of the dataset, I think, two years ago. We changed the format of our statistical tables to cater the needs of our stakeholders. No? But if there's still a need for further improvement, we're happy to discuss it with you, Director Ballester, and improve further yung ating format. On the releasing of much longer time series data, I think this is for the seasonal adjusted. We also started releasing this year the series of our seasonally adjusted IMTS in our OpenStat database. Used to be kasi it's just attached in our press release, but starting this year, we have also posted the longer series for seasonally adjusted IMTS in the OpenStat database. So please feel free to access the data in our OpenStat database. On recommendation to separate the trend and cycle of the exports and import series, I have asked the technical staff to check, but currently we are using kasi J. Demetra for the generation of seasonally adjusted IMTS, and currently combined yung trend and cycle, but we will explore using other statistical applications kung kaya nating ma-separate yung trend and cycle. And on the recommendations naman from our partners from DTI, Attorney Faustino, on the improvement of consistency of data with UN Comtrade, World Bank, and International Trade Center, ITC, we're pleased to inform you that the data that we are consistently submitting data, IMTS data particularly, to UN Comtrade and ITC, or the International Trade Center. No, we are submitting the data to them on a monthly basis. So we assume that the data that they are releasing are coming from the PSA. But the possible cause of discrepancy is because of the valuation. The IMTS data that we are releasing is using free on board as valuation, but possibly the UN Comtrade or ITC are using the CIF as valuation, which is one of the possible reasons of the discrepancy. But again, if we convert the data to CIF, we could get the consistent data, no? And another possible reason for that discrepancy is the revisions. We are currently providing data on a monthly basis, but we are also revising the data as soon as additional documents, imports and export documents were provided by the BOC, or the Bureau of Customs. So what we could do to avoid or to further improve the consistency of data that are being released by the PSA with the data that are being released by UN Comtrade, World Bank, and the International Trade Center is for us to provide also on a regular basis the revised data so that they could capture it and use it in their publications. Thank you.
Thank you very much po, ANS Rachel. These are a lot of activities for the PSA, primarily for the improvement of the FTS. Yes po, DNS Grace.
Hello, Mike Des. Just an addition to those mentioned by ANS Rachel regarding innovations, because your question was about innovation. We are about also to present to the PSA board. We are developing methodology for the estimation of value of trade index and volume of trade index, and these are for presentation to the PSA board. I think third quarter of this year. So it's similar to UVI, but this time around it's not about price or derived price, but it's about the value and volume of exported and imported goods. So abangan niyo po 'yon.
Thank you very much po, DNS Grace Del Prado. We have questions from the participants online. First one from Mr. Renante Maturan. Given that the Philippines has a high concentration of exports, what specific measures or policy interventions po are being considered by the government to diversify Philippine export? Maybe this could be answered by the DepDev or the DTI.
I think I'll answer first. Will it be okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Currently, we really want to diversify exports. If you look into our Philippine Development Plan, the current planning period, we have two outcomes that we would like to achieve. One is to sustain and strengthen, of course, our exports, And the other one, it has to be complemented, our trade in particular, both exports and import, to be complemented by strong investments. So if we want to diversify, of course, we want to know there are several strategies for that. But one strong strategy is we need to resolve the key constraints on export growth and competitiveness. We all know that our exports firms have been declining for several years already. One way to resolve this is, of course, we want to strengthen the incentive mechanism. Of course, the way they market their products. Kasi isang problema, one problem there is how you actually sell your product outside of the country. It's very expensive in terms of logistics. I think one of the low-hanging fruits is the right now in Congress, and it's part of the priority legislative agenda, is the amendment of the IPIRA law. So I think once this has passed, this will strengthen actually the ERC, the Energy Regulatory Commission, so that it will be able to make the power market more competitive, and thus affecting or lowering price for all the consumers. Another one is, well, we have several FTAs, and dito I can expound more on this. Actually, what we're seeing is a more accelerated FTA agreements that have been forged. So we have more in the pipeline on this, so we can have more market access for our exporters. The third one is, of course, we want to, as mentioned a while ago by DTI also, the industrialization. So we really have to strengthen our industrialization policy, because in the past we have lost that. The first phase that was in the 70s, in the early 80s. Now we are doing it via your Tatak Pinoy. But we need to make it stronger, and of course to implement it faster, because that's what's needed actually, so that it could be linked also to our global value chains. And finally, on the side of the investments, I think we have to be more aggressive in terms of investments. We have good performers in investments. We have the investment promotion agencies, the likes of PESA, BUI, SBMA, CDC, even the Bataan Export Processing Zone. They are catering more foreign direct investments. But in the other half of the story, we need to have more investments that are coming in that are outside of the economic zones. So we want to engage our local government units to be more to revisit their their investment policy, their incentive packages that they're giving to our investors. I think those are some of the ideas that I can cite. But if you want more details, there are actually 14 strategies enumerated in our PDP, and you can try to have a look at it. It's available online. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much po, Director Ballester. Do we have additional inputs po from Attorney Faustino?
Thank you so much, Director Richard And for mentioning already the Tatak Pinoy and for citing all the other strategies and programs that the government is already implementing with the end in view of diversifying our exports. So it has been an issue already, a challenge for the Philippines to really diversify, because I think in the last 20 years or so, our exports have always been dominated by electronics. I think more than 60% of our exports are electronics and electronic products. So actually for the DTI, we have been implementing several initiatives towards the end of diversification, but the most recent, and we feel the most optimistic with this program, is the Tatak Pinoy implementation of the Tatak Pinoy strategy, because for the first time, we were able to formulate a strategy, an industrialization roadmap that is actually backed by law. So nasa batis po ito, unlike the previous industrialization policies that we implemented na hindi po talaga embedded or embodied sa batas. Ito pong Tatak Pinoy strategy is actually mandated under the Tatak Pinoy Act, or RA 11981, the Tatak Pinoy Proudly Filipino Act. So we have the President actually approved na po the Tatak Pinoy strategy, which last October 2025, and we are currently starting po yung implementation process ng ibang mga interventions that have been identified in the strategy. Yung isa pong primary na intervention po, or primary na policy that the government will implement, will be the domestic preference in government procurement. This is actually we view it as a milestone, because this is the government again investing in domestic enterprises. It's because the Tatak Pinoy aims to enhance the productivity and competitiveness of Philippine industries in the global market, as well as to encourage or support the production of high value, high quality products and services. So, yung isa pong major na policy tool that the government is using right now is to implement domestic preference in government procurement, which specifically aims po to support po the development of domestic enterprises. So dito po kasi sa domestic preference, the government po will be using its huge procurement capacity po, not just as a procurement or a purchasing exercise, but more po of a transformative tool. Kasi for the 10 years that after the approval po of the Tatak Pinoy strategy, magkakaroon po ng preference sa lahat ng mga kumpanya na magsasubmit ng bids in government procurement, magkakaroon po ng preference sa mga holders ng Tatak Pinoy seal. So actually yung logic po dito is that we will be giving yung kontrata natin in government procurement sa mga domestic enterprises, regardless po of price, regardless po of regardless po of price, even if mas mura po yung sa imported suppliers, we will still give po the contract for government procurement sa mga domestic enterprises with Tatak Pinoy seal. Ang logic po is that we will be encouraging yung production po ng mga production of our domestic enterprises with the end in view, of course po, na they will be competitive enough. They will achieve being competitive to the point that they can already compete in the global market. Ito po yung isa sa major na major na program that the DTI is implementing right now. Actually, yesterday po natapos lang po yung Tatak Pinoy Expo sa MOA from May 25 to 27. This was a showcase po ng strength of Philippine companies. Marami pong Philippine companies that are not yet exporting, and yet they are already producing world-class Philippine products. So ito po yung isa sa major na mga initiatives na ginagawa po ng DTI ngayon, and that was the reason din po why one of our recommendations was to possibly monitor yung performance of the 9 Tatak Pinoy priority sectors, ma-check po or ma-monitor yung performance nila through the IMTS. So, na-mention na rin po ni Director Richard that yung in terms of FTAs, well, for the DTI, it is a mandate po for the DTI to intensify po yung mga FTAs that we are negotiating, and hopefully po ma-conclude po this year yung FTAs with, I think with Chile, with Canada, and we also have yung sa EU, FTA po with EU. So hopefully it would provide, it would expand market access po for our Philippine products. So these are some of the initiatives po that the department is undertaking. Thank you po.
Thank you very much po, Director Attorney Faustino, for sharing the government interventions on diversifying the exports. We have a question from Mr. Alan Castaños. As envisioned, the Philippines will be a major trading hub. What policies and directions are cooked to accelerate it? The gap of imports, particularly coming from China, which I assume that the bulk of its comprise the raw materials for electronics. If this dries up, where would be the possible sources of these materials? As to exports, the US is the top trading partner. Since the Philippines has an advantage in garment industry, yet there is a quota requirement, how can this be increased? Thank you. I think this can be also answered by the DTI and the DepDev.
Allow me to respond first, if it's okay with you.
Yes, sir, Director Ballester.
I think there are 3 questions embedded in the 3 sub-questions given in the query by Sir Alan. The first one is, as a major trading hub. As a major trading hub, I think what we need is the clustering of our industries. That is what we have missed actually in our first industrialization. And that's what we are aiming for. If we have clusters, then we can have more economies of scale actually in the various industries that we have. Those that we reveal comparative advantage. A while ago, you have seen the presentation of Attorney Faustino regarding this. So those with reveal comparative advantage, we could bank on those. The second sub-question in your question, sir, is that the glut of imports, particularly coming from China, if this dries up, what would be the possible sources of these materials? Well, that is the reason, sir, why we are actually diversifying our exports. And one way of diversifying this is to increase the market access. So you have really to increase the number of FTA partners. If you look at Vietnam, which is a good case for us here in ASEAN, they have many FTAs already being implemented. So we're also in a hurry to forge FTAs like what I mentioned a while ago by Attorney Faustino. Because what we want is that we are not susceptible to to shocks that alter the value chain of our trade. Lalo pa ngayon, what we're experiencing is a global one. If we can diversify, then at least we can we have a cushion to our trade. If you look into the trade data in the side of investments, we're getting more investors actually also from the US, from Europe, Netherlands, Japan. As I understand, China is increasingly becoming getting a larger share of our imports. But if because that is all of logistics, more of logistics reason. Lapit, mas mura, madali yung shipping, di ba? Saka yung cargo cost. But if we can have FTAs with other economies, other blocks, economic blocks, I think that will lessen our dependence to one big country. Okay. Now, as to the third sub question that you have, since the Philippines has an advantage in the garment industry, yet there's a quota requirement. I'm not sure. I have not seen in details in terms of empirics if garment still has the revealed comparative advantage. But please, don't misinterpret me. Garments still important for us because there are many workers who are still are engaged, and many firms are still engaged in this in industry. I think what we can do is to link it with the creative industry that we have, especially that we have the Tatak Pinoy strategy already. Because yun ang value added mo eh. You want to increase the value added of your garment industry. And one way to do it is to link it with the creative industry, such that those that are being done by our creative professionals and even by our IPs, yung ating mga indigenous people, we can incorporate it actually in our garment. That could be a value proposition actually for our garment industry. So I think I have answered your 3 questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much po, Director Ballester. Do we have additional inputs po from the DTI? Maybe other discussions also may add?
Sir, additional inputs na lang din po, although more of strengthening din po what Director Richard mentioned already. For DTI po kasi, when we say yung diversification, it involves two-pronged diversification po ito. So we have product diversification and also market diversification po. So related po to what we was already said earlier po, continuous po, and actually we are intensifying po yung mga FTAs negotiations natin, mga tech talks natin with other partner countries. We are aside from our top trading partner countries, we are also targeting yung mga non-traditional partners po natin. When we say po non-traditional partners, these are yung mga partners po natin that are not in the top 10 or top 20 po na partner ng Pilipinas. So right now po, as mentioned, we are exploring po mga preferential trade agreement talks with countries like Chile, Israel, and yung UAE po. Kasi po, ano lang po, i-mention ko rin po yung nasabi na rin kanina na I cannot emphasize it more kasi yung importante po that hindi po lang isa lang ang market natin for our products and also for sources ng ating mga imports din. Kasi when something happens, kahit na wala po tayong kinalaman, nagkaroon ng gulo or nagkaroon po ng conflict, for example, sa Middle East conflict, nagkaroon po dahil concentrated din po yung imports natin sa GCC countries, ang laki po ng naging impact sa atin. So, ito po talaga yung ano rin, ito rin po talaga yung wisdom talaga na tuloy-tuloy yung pag-diversify po natin, not just of the products that we export, but also yung market diversification po ng market natin, ng market destination, and yung sources po ng mga imports natin. Yun lang po. Thank you.
Thank you very much po, Attorney Faustino. Do we have
Just to
other...
I will just add one more.
Sige po, Director.
Regarding on the side of cost. Isa sa problema kasi natin ngayon dito, one of the big problems and challenges actually in the country is actually on how you transport our exports, especially for our MSMEs. And one of the challenging reforms actually is the cabotage law. We have to revisit the cabotage law. Ano po yung cabotage law? It is where foreign ships could travel within the Philippines, conduct commercial trade within in the inter-island activities in the Philippines. Kasi sa ngayon, what a foreign ship can do is just go within, carry something, and then kung meron dadalhin, diretso lang doon sa port of destination niya outside of the country. But they cannot engage commercial activities within. That's why transport of commodities, especially exports, is very, very expensive in our country. So I think it's one of the reforms that we need to push. But we all know that it's a very tough one because of institutional limits that we can encounter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much po, Director Ballester. Before we end our question and answer portion, maybe do you have other inputs or comments from other panelists and discussants before we end our Q&A po? Okay. So as we approach the end of our session, we would like to thank or extend our sincere appreciation to our panelists and discussants, as well as our keynote speaker, for sharing their expertise, insights, and valuable perspectives throughout the discussion. Thank you very much to all online participants for active engagement in our open forum. That ends our question and answer portion. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much to our panelists for sharing their expertise and to our moderator, Mr. Abalos, for skillfully guiding the discussion. To formally close our forum, may we call on the Deputy National Statistician of the Sectoral Statistics Office of the Philippine Statistics Authority, Assistant Secretary Divina Gracia L. Del Prado.
Thank you, Jordan. To our keynote speaker, Attorney Alan Jepti, the Undersecretary of the Department of Trade and Industry, International Trade Group. Our discussants, Attorney Maria Teresa Faustino, the Officer in Charge of the Bureau of Policy, Research, and Innovation of the Department of Trade and Industry, Mr. Richard Emerson Ballester, the Director of the Trade, Services, and Industry Staff of the Department of Economy, Planning and Development, Dr. Sir Percival Peña Reyes, Assistant Professor of the Department of Economics, Ateneo de Manila University, and Mr. Gabriel Iniego Hernandez, Economist 5 of the Office of the Chief Economist, Department of Finance, to Assistant National Statistician Rachel Laksa, who is leading the Economic Sector Statistics Service of the PSA, distinguished guests from various government agencies and private sectors who join us online, my colleagues from the Philippine Statistics Authority, a pleasant morning to all. As we conclude today's Forum on the International Merchandise Trade Statistics, or IMTS, allow me to sincerely thank each of you for being part of this meaningful event. Your active participation, valuable insights, and thoughtful questions have greatly enriched our discussions and contributed to the success of this gathering. We extend our deepest gratitude to our keynote speaker, Undersecretary Alan Jepti of the International Trade Group of DTI. Your message provided a valuable perspective on the role of trade statistics in strengthening policy direction, promoting competitiveness, and supporting the country's broader economic development agenda. To our discussants, we are truly grateful for the insights and expertise you've shared. Your contributions have greatly enhanced our understanding of the role of quality trade data in evidence-based decision-making. Your thoughtful analysis and engaging dialogue have deepened our appreciation for the value of accurate and timely trade statistics. We also extend our gratitude to the Bureau of Customs, the Philippine Economic Zone Authority, the Clark Development Corporation, and their authorized value-added service providers for the consistent provision of timely custom documents. With this, the PSA remains responsive in its provision of timely and relevant trade statistics. To the traders who serve as the primary source of information for IMTS, we express our heartfelt thanks for your continued cooperation in providing clear, accurate, and timely report. Your data provision directly supports the integrity, relevance, and improvement of the country's official trade statistics. To our partners from government agencies and the business sector, we are grateful for your time, ideas, and active participation in today's forum. Your engagement helps ensure that the statistics we produce are not only disseminated, but also understood, discussed, and used appropriately and effectively. At this point, I would like to extend also my sincere appreciation to the Trade Statistics Division led by Chief Statistical Specialist Maria Julieta P. Soliven, under, of course, the guidance of Assistant National Statistician Rachel Laksa, for their diligent efforts in preparing for this event. Likewise, to our technical staff from the Information Technology and Dissemination Service of the PSA for ensuring seamless connectivity throughout the event. And of course, to our moderator, Mr. Anthony Abalos, and our Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Jordan Arnaiz, for facilitating this forum. We look forward to more opportunities for collaboration and meaningful engagement with all of you in our future events on IMTS and even in other events organized by the PSA. Once again, a pleasant morning to all. Afternoon na pala, and we wish everyone a truly wonderful and productive day ahead. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, DNS Del Prado, for your closing message and for your continued leadership and support. Before we officially end today's forum, we encourage everyone to please provide us your valuable feedback by answering the forum's evaluation form through the QR code or link shown on the screen. Allow me also to invite everyone to please open your camera for a photo opportunity. Again, may we request our online participants to please open your camera. Again, we are requesting our online participants to please open your camera. Thank you. Okay, ready? Keep smiling, ladies and gentlemen. 1, 2, 3. Another one. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Again, as we end today's forum, we would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to our speakers, discussants, panelists, guests, and participants who contributed to the success of the 2026 Data Dissemination Forum on IMTS. Your presence and active engagement reflect our shared commitment to strengthening the country's statistical system and promoting the value of accurate and timely trade data. To our partners, data providers, and users, thank you for your continued support and collaboration with the PSA. We also thank our organizing teams and technical staff who worked behind the scenes to make this virtual event possible. Let's give everyone a well-deserved virtual round of applause. Once again, thank you for being with us online, and we look forward to seeing you at our future fora and engagements. Thank you very much and have a great day.